Hello there, I'm Noel Hacegaba, Chief Operating Officer at the Port of Long Beach. Welcome to Supply Chain Insight, where we explore the latest trends, issues, and news in the supply chain with top industry leaders, experts, and trendsetters. Our objective is to bring you the insight you need to help your cargo keep moving. Today's business executives expect a lot from their supply chains: efficiency, velocity, flexibility, cost management, and operational excellence. Supply Chain Insight brings the supply chain to you, one segment at a time, to explore new approaches and innovative solutions that will help you and the Port of Long Beach deliver greater value to our customers and partners. Today's episode is an intermodal update, and our guest is Joni Casey, President and CEO of the Intermodal Association of North America, also known as IANA. Under Joni's leadership, IANA has achieved many milestones, most notably the growth in membership from several hundred companies to more than 1,000, the creation and expansion of industry technology programs under its intermodal information services, the scholarship program aimed at fostering the next generation of talent in freight and intermodal transportation, and the initiation of an industry advocacy program designed to increase the association's visibility before policymakers. Now, prior to joining IANA, Joni served as the Executive Director of the American Trucking Association's Intermodal Council and as the President and CEO of the TIA, the Transportation Intermediaries Association. Well, Joni, welcome to Supply Chain Insight. So good to see you. Thank you for joining us on the eve of the 2024 IANA Expo, the intermodal industry's flagship event, the annual gathering of industry leaders, innovative startups, and engaged professionals from all modes of the intermodal industry. We'll talk about Expo in a few moments, but first, let's talk about what's happening in intermodal.
Thanks so much, Noel. I appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to having a lively conversation with you as we usually do.
Likewise, and we'll talk about Expo in a few moments, Joni, but first let's talk about what's happening in the industry. Here in Long Beach, we've seen record cargo volumes cross our docks. We just posted our strongest July on record, and that was on top of our strongest June ever. For the period of January through July, we are 20% ahead of the same period last year. So tell us how this is translating into intermodal activity and give us your state of the intermodal industry.
Certainly. Your experience obviously is comparable to what the entire industry is experiencing right now. In terms of business, total intermodal volumes are up 14% July year over year. You're a little bit higher, obviously. International, of which you're a major component, is up 21%. Domestic container volumes up a little bit lower, 10.2%. And the whole domestic picture is drawn down a little bit by the trailer volumes because those continue to decrease. You might have seen that the road railer program was put to bed as of Sunday of this week. So no more trailers on flat car. Everything's going container from now on. But the domestic piece of the equation is a little bit challenged still by excess trucking capacity. But that appears to be tempering as well. The growth obviously is being fueled by the import volumes. And again, you're experiencing that. And a lot of it is driving through the West Coast. And I think we're seeing fairly traditional peak shipping patterns this year. Again, hadn't been seeing those in past years, but we're more back to peak with July, August, September volumes.
Thanks for sharing your insights, Joni. It sounds like the numbers you're seeing in intermodal are tracking with the numbers we're seeing here at the ports. Now, let me ask you this question. Taking a step back, how are capacity constraints at the Panama Canal, the uncertainty surrounding the labor contract on the East Coast, and the labor situation involving the Canadian railroads affecting intermodal?
Well, we certainly had our share of challenges, issues over the last 12 to 18 months. In terms of Panama, I think the drought in Panama has run its course, per se. I don't think you're seeing quite the capacity constraints in the canal that you saw maybe 6-8 months ago. And based on the metrics that I'm seeing, the increase in capacity is going to continue to come online through third quarter, if not for the rest of this year. So I think that hopefully is behind us. Labor actions, that's a whole other story, and we're holding our breath on that one. Anything that hits the East and Gulf Coast ports not only is going to impact those locations, but it's absolutely going to disrupt the supply chain throughout the country. So we'll have to basically keep our eyes on that. Not looking particularly optimistic, but anything can happen. And hopefully we'll end up with a good resolution, similar to what happened out in your neck of the woods a couple of years ago. Canadian rail strike, another issue, challenge, averted temporarily, or if not permanently, by the binding arbitration that the government has imposed. But I still think it's a wait and see. The Teamsters in Canada have said they're going to challenge that binding arbitration decision. Not sure exactly how that's going to work out, but I think it's interesting to keep in mind that for every day of a strike, it takes 3 to 4 work days to work off the backlogs that are incurred by those strikes. And that still doesn't take into account what happens, south of the border, Canada and the U.S., and the activities that are halted and are impacted in U.S. Intermodal facilities. So that one, hopefully, we're behind, but isn't resolved yet. And I also think another issue, kind of in the background, is the geopolitical tensions in the Red Sea. It looks like the import shippers have accommodated the additional transit times necessary to avert the Red Sea shipping lanes, but another one that we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Thanks for that insight, Joni. And as they say, if you're in supply chain, expect disruption. It comes in different forms each year. But I think we're with you. I mean, we want a swift resolution on either of these issues that we've been talking about. And in the event that there isn't a swift resolution, the good thing is that there is capacity across the system. Here in Southern California, obviously, we have that as well. I want to ask you now a question that I get asked quite a bit, and that is for the balance of the year. So how do you see intermodal activity shaping up for the rest of 2024? And what are some of the headwinds and things that you would say we need to look out for?
I think that the growth will continue, perhaps not in double digit, at least by the end of the year. We're looking for 5.5% total growth across the board by the end of the year. 14% on the international side, and maybe 3.5% to 4% on the domestic side. Again, trailers lagging there. In terms of headwinds, I think from an economic perspective, we're seeing consumer spending slowing up. We're seeing unemployment raising a little bit, slightly, but both of those issues could be tempered by interest rate decreases that we're hoping to see in September. So obviously the economic circumstances drive a lot of the volumes. We already talked about potential impact of labor actions and ongoing over-the-road trucking impacts, but something that should be on everybody's radar screen, I think, not necessarily by the end of this year, but going into next year, is a new administration coming in. Right now, all of the legislative regulatory issues have been backburnered in light of the election. But we have seen, as you have personally, a lot of regulations and legislation that could adversely impact the intermodal industry and transportation as a whole. I expect those will come roaring back early next year after a new administration comes into play.
Well, definitely lots to monitor and keep track of, Joni. Thanks for sharing your insights on that. For those in our audience who may be new to IANA, take a moment and tell us about IANA, your mission, your members, how you support the supply chain.
Certainly. IANA is a transportation trade association, and we represent the combined interests of intermodal transportation providers and their customers. Our mission is to promote the use and the benefit of intermodal transportation, and we do that, as we previously mentioned, through our advocacy and educational programs, as well as developing technology solutions for the industry. We have 1,000+ corporate members, and they are across 5 major stakeholder groups: 3PLs, motor carriers, rail, marine, and the suppliers to the industry.
So you just made a big announcement in July. After 27 years at the helm of IANA, you'll be retiring as president and CEO. And let me say that as a member of the board of directors and past chairman, I want to personally thank you, Joni, for your service to IANA, to intermodalism. Through your steady leadership, IANA has flourished as an association during a time of growth and transformative change. So on that point, what are some of the significant ways that intermodalism has changed and evolved during your tenure?
Well, looking back, 27 years, I think the best way to describe it is intermodal to me was in its adolescence when I first came into the industry. And over the years, it's evolved from being what I think most considered a substitute service in times of capacity crunches to a mode of its own. It's a definitive transportation option now, and it has gone through growing pains, obviously. But I think in the maturing of the industry, you're starting to see a lot more opportunities and benefit to using intermodal transportation.
I like that analogy. Intermodalism is no longer an adolescent, right? It's now a full functioning adult. So you have a big event coming up, the 2024 IANA Expo here in Long Beach from September 9th through 11th. What can we expect to hear at this year's Expo?
Expo has evolved to becoming one of the must-attend freight transportation events in the fall. There's lots of them, so hopefully we've been able to differentiate ourselves as a must-go-to. Attendees come to basically, I think, celebrate the successes that they've enjoyed, as well as solve problems that are ongoing and continuing. We're expecting north of 2,000 attendees this year based on registrations.
Fantastic.
And the trade show is sold out with 150 exhibitors who are there to display all their new toys, as we call them, as well as the new inventions and solutions for the industry. So we're happy to be in Long Beach again, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for your support as our supporting and hosting sponsor.
Thanks for that, Joni. It's a pleasure to be a partner for the Port of Long Beach, to partner with IANA, and kudos again to you and your team for every year raising the bar and attracting these record attendees. So just to give the audience an example of what they might expect to hear on the content side, I'll be participating on a panel titled The Decarbonization Conundrum. And here in Long Beach, we're literally on track to becoming a zero emissions port, thanks to projects like our Pier B on-dock rail support facility, also known as America's Green Gateway, and a big thanks to IANA for supporting that project, as well as our industry-leading transition to zero emissions cargo handling equipment and trucks. You know, one of the intermodal's many advantages is environmental sustainability. And I can say that the administration has been extremely supportive of our collective efforts here as an industry. Tell us how intermodal helps to make the supply chain cleaner and more sustainable.
Intermodal, when you think about it, basically blends the most efficient attributes of each mode. Today's over-the-road trucks move 1 ton of freight, 145 miles on 1 gallon of fuel, while the railroads move 1 ton of freight, 500 miles on a gallon of fuel. So that's 4 times more efficient than trucking. And at the same time, it saves 25 million tons of CO emissions. And the industry continues to reduce its environmental footprint by investing in research, technologies, and design in projects like the Port of Long Beach has and will continue to undertake.
Yeah, those are staggering numbers, Joni. And again, thank you, and thanks to IANA for supporting projects like Pier B that help to illustrate the advantages of intermodal throughout our industry. Now, during Expo, you will also be hosting a student case competition, and IANA awards scholarships to college students throughout the year. Tell us about IANA's role in preparing and investing in the next generation of freight and intermodal leaders.
My pleasure. It's one of my favorite aspects of my job. We have a scholarship program that was created 17 years ago, and it focuses on undergraduate, graduate, and professional development programs at across 13 universities, and we keep adding every year, as you know, being a member of the board. We've awarded over $5.5 million in scholarships in that time. And the schools use those monies for tuition reimbursement, curriculum development, research that the students conduct, as well as we call them study tours, where we actually get the students out into real-time situations so that they can experience the whole intermodal network with the hopes of being attracted to go to work there. The program's designed for what we call intermodal practitioners. So it's people that we hope will go to work at the actual providers, rails, ports, 3PLs, versus companies that hire folks out of school to basically buy and purchase transportation. So that's really our focus. It's a little different than some of the other educational offerings out there.
Yeah, and again, Joni, just a huge congratulations to you for putting out that vision of investing in our students. I like to say here at the Port of Long Beach that when you invest in our students, you're investing in your future. And there are a lot of similarities between Port of Long Beach and IANA as it relates to investing in our future workforce. So thank you for that incredible vision that you've matured over the years and has blossomed to an amazing program. So my last question for you is, how can folks learn more about IANA and the Expo?
Best place is our website, intermodal.org. Anything you need to know should be there. And if it's not, give me a call and we'll figure it out for you.
Well, Joni, thanks again for joining me on Supply Chain Insight, and thanks again for your 27 years of service to IANA and to the intermodal industry. Best wishes for a successful Expo and for a wonderful retirement. I look forward to staying in touch with you. And to our valued audience, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again soon for another episode of Supply Chain Insight, brought to you by the Port of Choice, the Port of Long Beach.